Sometimes the urge strikes to build a PC so devilishly cool that it seems capable of summoning infernal creatures from the depths of hell, much like the malevolent marvel we showcased last month. But there are moments when we yearn to forge a system that's more about fun and creativity, one that celebrates the simple joys of DIY PC building. Enter today's rig, for example. This computer isn't vying for the title of the mightiest or most aggressive machine you've ever laid eyes on, and that's perfectly fine. Its motley assortment of hardware and novel appearance are the result of building without expectations, the type of PC you build like no one's watching. To top it off, it bears an uncanny resemblance to Swiss cheese, a delightful and unexpected bonus. If you find yourself drawn to today's computer, you might just be one of the wonderfully eccentric few. This, my friends, is Build of the Month. Before we continue, this video is brought to you in part by cdkeyoffer.com. So I have 3 desktop PCs that I regularly bounce between, and all of them are running activated copies of Windows from keys that I got on cdkeyoffer.com. I've used many key sites in the past, but CD Key Offer is the only one I've never had an issue with. I've never had a bad key, I've never had to call customer service, I've never had to email customer support, and I've never had to activate Windows over a phone, which is super fun. Right now you can get a Windows 10 Pro OEM key for around $22, but wait! Add it to your cart, use the 25% discount code BW20 at checkout, and the price drops to just $16.93. Buy Grabthar's hammer, what a savings. To use your new key, just go to your purchased orders from the drop-down menu to view and copy the key once you get there, and then paste that key into the Windows activation page. Voila! You've got an activated OS that's also eligible for a free upgrade to Windows 11. Alternatively, you can skip the upgrade and buy Windows 11 Pro directly using the same code BW20 to snag the OS for around $23. Activate the key using the aforementioned steps and get the full Windows experience easily and affordably. Thanks again to cdkeyoffer.com. Now back to the main video. Now before we get started, a really quick reminder, as we always do in this series, I will be giving away the latest build of the month to a lucky winner right here in the US, but any international viewers aren't left out either. If you happen to be chosen, you'll snag a sweet $1,000 cash prize instead of the PC. So everyone, be sure to click the description link below to enter this month's giveaway for this very special build. Now, the biggest factor that gives today's build its unique style is the Cooler Master Cube 500 Flat Pack, an ATX mid-tower case that comes flat-packed and requires assembly as the name suggests. Apart from some cost savings and eco-friendly benefits, the choice to ship the case this way is aimed at enthusiasts and new builders looking to make the most of their DIY experience. While some see building their own PC as a chore, most of us in this community jump at the opportunity, and the Cube 500 seems to be cut from the same cloth. Arriving in pieces also allows endless customization possibilities and modularity, which we'll circle back to once the build is up and running. Now, despite its compact 33-liter volume, the pint-sized body supports full-size hardware, up to eATX motherboards, 365mm GPUs, ATX power supplies, 280mm radiators, and 9 fans. Cooler Master sent us the macaron version of the case, which includes a trio of pastel panel options that you can mix and match. But for less eclectic tastes, the Cube 500 Flat Pack is also available in black and white. Although we'll be taking a more modest approach with our specs today, this build is certainly no slouch. Our CPU is the Intel Core i5-13600K with 14 cores, 20 threads, and a max turbo frequency of 5.3 GHz. I wasn't able to procure a new 14th gen equivalent in time for this video, unfortunately, but countless reviews have concluded that it doesn't matter much. Moving on to our motherboard assembly, this includes the Gigabyte Z790 UDAC, 32 gigs of G.Skill Trident Z5 RGB DDR5 6000 speed, and a 1TB Samsung 980 NVMe M.2 SSD. To keep CPU thermals in check, we'll be using the Master Liquid 240 Atmos from Cooler Master, featuring a dual chamber pump, a pump top cover that can be customized with your own 3D printed designs, and the latest Sickle Flow Edge 120 RGB fans. I'll also be installing a few spare 140 fans at various mounting points in the case to ensure healthy airflow. Our GPU is the MSI Ventus 3X RTX 4060 Ti with 8 gigs of GDDR6. The dual slot card utilizes a triple fan cooler with direct contact heat pipes for optimal heat dissipation and an updated heatsink to aid acoustics and airflow. Delivering high frame rates at 1080p, the 4060 Ti is a solid mid-range companion for our 13600K. Powering the system is the Cooler Master GX3 Gold 850 with ATX 3.0 support and a 90-degree 12-volt high-power cable, titanium efficiency at lighter loads, fully modular cabling, and a 10-year warranty. If you want more info on any of the hardware that I just mentioned, I will put links in the description below. All right, I've got everything laid out for me. I just took everything out of the box, including all of the pieces for the Cube 500. You can see we've got the motherboard panel right here. That is probably what we're gonna start working on first, although I kinda wanna prep the motherboard before that even. So why don't we just go ahead and, especially the CPU cooler backplate for our AIO, although it wouldn't really matter because we have a generous cutout for that on the motherboard plate, but I'm still gonna do this first anyway. It just feels right. It just feels right. I believe these are the proper standoffs for LGA 1700. I think now I'm gonna mount the motherboard plate and then go from there. So we've already got pre-installed standoffs. So we're just gonna go to town on installing this board here. I already lost my screwdriver. Where the hell? Where's my screwdriver? Now there's two ways to install a CPU. You can either remove the CPU cover first, or you can pop it out, let it pop out automatically when you pull the lever down. I am of the latter group of people, because it's fun. It's more fun that way. DRAM. M.2, I choose you. That's the wrong way. Don't do that, Kyle. I like the pre-installed M.2 drive locks that are on select ASUS motherboards for the newer generation. Those are pretty sweet. Gigabyte, get on that. Tired of fishing around and fondling these little tiny M.2 screws. My fat fingers won't allow it. All right, chugging right along here. I did read the manual. I did look at the manual for the Cube 500 thoroughly, but I also just wrote down the sort of highlighted notes from that in my phone, so I can just look at a glance and see what we're doing here. So next, we'll do the PSU. And this is actually kind of cool, and something that I didn't expect about this case is that you build the system as you unbox and build the case. I was under the impression that you build the case first, and then you build the PC as you would a normal PC that comes with a pre-assembled case. But that's not the case, is it? No, we're doing everything at once, and I kind of like that because it really adds to the overall experience. It creates a different experience from an ordinary build, which I really like. And I think they advertised that, but I missed it, I didn't read it. But power supply. Okay, so this is gonna be the front of the case. If this is the front of the case, and it is perforated, there's a dust filter. We're gonna want the fan facing that way. We don't want it competing with airflow from inside the case. So we're gonna flip it this way. We've got this bracket that apparently goes like so. Aha. And it's worth noting that you can apparently mount a 280 millimeter radiator. I mentioned that earlier, but you can mount one in 3 different locations in this case. To the top, to the bottom, or to the front. But if you do it to the front, if you mount the radiator to the front, then you have to move the power supply elsewhere. And I don't know where the hell you'd move it, because obviously it's right here at the front of the case. Sorry, just future Kyle here, just chiming in really quick. I did consult the manual on this, and apparently you can mount the power supply to the bottom of the case towards the rear if you want to mount a 240 or 280 rad to the front of the case. This is just going to simply limit your expansion slots at the back, so you won't be able to install as thick of graphics cards, and it's going to take up at least one of those fan slots on the bottom panel as well, if not both of them, when you consider the excess cabling, and obviously your mileage may vary depending on the length of PSU. But just want to set the record straight there. Now back to stupid present Kyle. But we're gonna go with the top of the case. We're gonna mount our radiator to the top. Now this has 3 different levels. You can mount it high, medium, or low, depending on how much clearance you want above and below the power supply. Above, obviously, if you're mounting thick fans or a radiator with fans, or you want clearance below, should you need more clearance for the cables, or up to a 140 millimeter fan at the front of the case, like I just mentioned. We should screw this down. I believe there's 2 or 3 screws that need screwing here. You know what? It's actually just that one screw that keeps the power supply in place. Then it relies on gravity to keep it down. That being said, I should mention that you don't necessarily have to prop this case upright. They're aiming for flexibility here, so you could, when this is all said and done, you could just mount it in like a half XB way where it's just laying oriented as it is now, or you could even mount it rotated where your rear I/O is facing up if you just wanted easier access to all of those connections. But we're just gonna do it standard. Oh, actually, before I forget, we also need to plug in this guy. There we go. Here's our rear panel. We have an included 120 millimeter fan. It's RGB. Looks like it's addressable RGB. We have a 3-pin 5-volt connector there, and then a 4-pin PWM connection for the fan. Cut out for our motherboard I/O, and then we have 7 horizontal expansion slots. However, you could remove these and install the vertical GPU bracket that they've included if you want to mount your GPU vertically. However, a riser cable is not included, so you'll have to bring your own, which I don't have one. That's currently not in use right now, so we're just going to mount our GPU horizontally today. I guess lining up with the motherboard I/O is a good place to start. Big question is, how well and easily do all of these pieces fit together? Because that could be a royal nightmare with DIY things like this. If the tooling is a little off, the machining isn't super precise, then it can be a real pain in the butt to get these things connected. But that went on like a glove. Geez, did someone pre-lube this? That was really easy. Now I gotta screw it down. I even wrote down how many screws it takes to mount each piece in each panel. Rear panel, 4 screws. I'm so smart. You're so smart, Kyle. Just like that, rear panel installed. Next up, our GPU. When have you ever installed a graphics card in a build this soon? This early in a build? It just doesn't happen. In some rare cases, sure, but I can't even remember the last time I got to the graphics card this early. Oh, and really quick, since we're here, let's do a quick, I want to do a quick 4090 test. Massive GPU test. Just want to do a quick fitment test here. So this is a 4080 FE, big thick boy, triple slot card. Obviously we have enough slots here. That fits no problem. And we still have plenty of room for our cables on the power supply. That looks really good. Plenty of clearance height-wise. And then we're gonna go with a MSI RTX 4090 Supreme X, because it's longer than the FE by quite a bit. And here you can see, if you're going with a much longer card, like a mega long card, it does get pretty tight with the cabling. You can route some of it underneath the card, right here. So I would recommend going with like an SFX power supply if you were installing a massively long GPU. Fortunately for us, we're going with a very modest dual slot card. There we go. Front panel, we're already ready for the front panel here. So this is the front panel. It's pre-installed with the green, the pastel green, kind of mint colored filter, whatever you want to call it, the cover, which you can pop off very easily. It's toolless. So we'll figure out what color we want to put on this at the end of the build once we get closer to finishing. So here you can see the flexible mounting strips for up to 280 millimeter radiators or 140 millimeter fans. You could do dual 140s. Obviously you could do 120s as well if you wanted to. We're actually going to mount a 120 fan here at the bottom. Before we do that, I want to quickly point out also that we've got a power button up top here. We have 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports and a USB-C port. That's actually USB 3.2 Gen 2. So you get a lot more bandwidth there, and a 3.5 millimeter audio combo jack. It'll be nice to have this front fan here just for additional airflow to the GPU. We will be mounting 2 140 millimeter fans at the bottom of the case, which is going to be, those are going to be aimed right at the graphics card as well, but it doesn't hurt to have a third one here, just because this looks like it could be a potential hotspot area. But let's go ahead and screw this front panel down. Maybe I should have screwed the front panel down first before I mounted the fan, but I guess this works. And already, like, I was kind of expecting this to feel more flimsy than it is. I mean, it's only half put together right now. There's not even a top and bottom panel, and the front and the rear panel especially is very solid. there's like very little flex right now. Way less than I thought there'd be. All right, we could probably do the bottom panel now. I think it's gonna go kind of like, oh, wow. Again, this is very high quality machining here. These are just going on super easy. There is a removable magnetic dust filter on the bottom. Put that aside for now and grab our 140 millimeter fans. I was gonna use some Fantex RGB fans I had laying around, but I realized those had RGB and I don't really feel like dealing with a million RGB wires. Give me a second, I'm gonna install these fans. Oh, you know what? I'm not gonna install these fans. In fact, I'm gonna actually remove the bottom panel. I kind of messed up the order of operations here. It'll be much, much easier if we do a bit of cable routing first because, like I said, this is a very pint-sized case, but it's able to house up to eATX motherboards, which means it's relatively tight in here. And once these top and bottom panels are on, it's gonna be very hard for my fat man hands to fish around there and try to plug in things like front panel connectors. So I'm actually gonna remove this bottom panel, do some cable management first, and then we'll proceed. Okay, got my first bit of cable management out of the way, and very impressed so far. You can see I didn't actually cut the zip ties yet. I didn't cut the little extra bits off because I wanted you guys to be able to see very easily where I've tied some of these cables down, including our 24-pin ATX going to the motherboard, all the front panel connectors, which are these thicker white cables. You can see that I've got about 4 zip ties there, and they're all in the right places. All the tie down points, I would say, are in appropriately placed spots where you would be routing cables. And there's also enough of them. Sometimes you get one or the other in a case, but not both always. And it really seems like they've put them everywhere. There's even more over here. I haven't tied down the CPU cable yet because I'm waiting for the AIO install. I'm gonna probably route those together. There's more tie down points all around the motherboard tray, or I'm sorry, the CPU cutout, which is, you don't ever see that. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them just around the CPU cutout, which is awesome. And then just plenty of room here as well. I think there's probably 1.5 inches of clearance between the motherboard tray and where the side panel would go on. So we should be able to get that on completely flush without any issues. This is looking really good so far. We'll come back to this once we've routed up the rest of the hardware, which I think really is just the AIO. So let's knock her out. Once again, you can do up to a 280 millimeter radiator or dual 140 fans at the bottom of the case as well, with those flexible mounting strips. Only 2 screws to keep that panel in place. Very nice. These are just some old Lian Li case fans that I pulled off of I don't know, maybe like a Land Cool case back in the day. You know, I just realized that these fans don't match. I thought these are the same fans. They are not. Even the blades are completely different. Hold on, let me see if I've got one to match one of them. Haha! Got it. Top panel, here we go. Take off the cover. What do you guys think of these colors, by the way? They're calling them macaron colors. You a fan of them? They're hideous. I don't know how I feel about them yet. Still deciding, but we'll figure it out once we get it all together. This is gonna go like so. I will say this build has gone really fast. I honestly thought it would take me twice as long because of the whole needing to build the case thing, but it's actually sped things up because side panels get in the way a lot more than I realized. I have just been breezing through this because I don't have a giant honk of metal, you know, a big chunk of metal just in my way at all times when I'm trying to plug things in or you know, get a good angle on something. So it's actually a pleasant surprise, especially considering that, you know, this is a fairly compact, a very compact mid tower. Thermal paste. Da-da-da-da-da. I always like it when AIO manufacturers let you do the thermal paste yourself instead of that pre-applied business. All right, right, the build is complete, and it actually turned out looking better than I expected, especially once I matched all of the lighting together. It was kind of a mismatch, before with like a pink panel, a green panel. There's a lot going on. I actually made it a bit more cohesive by just going straight mint, or whatever kind of green you want to call this. I think it's mint. So I just put both of the mint panels on, plus I swapped out the white handle on the back for this mint one. And by the way, this handle is very secure. You can use it to carry around the PC very easily. It's super sturdy. And then of course I matched up all the RGB lighting to the panel color. So I just used Master Plus, the Cooler Master software, for the AIO pump block and the radiator fans. And then I had to use RGB Fusion within Gigabyte Control Center, garbage software for the record, in order to control the rear fan and the RAM lighting. But it all came together. It looks really good. A couple things to point out about the finished build though. One thing I forgot to mention earlier, this is totally my bad, is that you can mount up to a 280mm radiator onto the side bracket here. That's also included. This has two positions. One over here that's sort of right over the VRM and motherboard area, and then another position down here if you want to target the GPU. Something to note about this though is the side panels that come included with the case. You've got one tempered glass and one ventilated side panel that has a dust filter on the other side of it, and these are symmetrical. You can use them on either side of the case, left or right, but it only makes sense to use this bracket if you're going to use this panel for the left, right? Because otherwise you're just trying to pull air or exhaust air through the glass, which obviously doesn't make sense. So if you did that, of course, you'd be sacrificing some aesthetic appeal because you wouldn't really be able to see much inside of your case, which, that's a bummer. But if you're really prioritizing airflow above all else and you don't really care about being able to see inside to the rest of your components, then that's the way you'd want to go, is with the bracket and the ventilated side panel on the left. Another minor concern that I pointed out earlier was about the PSU cables getting too bunched up around this area, just in front of the GPU, if that would interfere with a larger graphics card. But that's not the case at all. You can route the cables directly behind the motherboard tray through the cutout that's there. It's a very generous cutout. And then there's plenty of room, like I said earlier, to route any of that excess cabling behind the motherboard. So you don't really deal with much, clutter, cable clutter here at the front of the case at all. It's definitely not in the way of the fan, so that's good. And if you're the type of enthusiast that just really likes to tinker, there is that online marketplace from Cooler Master where a bunch of user-generated 3D prints can be downloaded, or 3D printed designs can be downloaded for you to print at home. They do include a couple of these hooks for things like your headphones or an Xbox controller. And then there's also this Gem Mini cable router that you can stick into literally any of these holes that are around the case in order to more neatly route your cables. I did take a quick look at the website, and there's a ton of cool designs that people are putting up there that are just completely free for you to download, print at home, and use in order to really customize or increase the functionality of your Cube 500 system. Honestly, this case has really impressed me as I've worked with it, and just seeing what it can do in such a small capacity. Like 33 liters is pretty tiny for a mid tower, and yet we've just got a bunch of full-size hardware. We could go even harder. I didn't even max it out today. We could go with a 280mm radiator, a 4090 in here if we wanted to. It's actually kind of making me think that I might take this case with me to CES next year for 2024, just because it's got that handle, it's compact, but it can be just really powerful if you cram the right hardware in there. I would probably swap out the power supply for SFX just to make it lighter, since I would be hauling it around Vegas and stuff. And then maybe going with a vertical GPU mount, if I could swing that, just so, when you're moving it around, it seems a little bit less dangerous than, and less strain on the PCB than being horizontally mounted. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. Why don't we go ahead and plug some peripherals in and take it for a spin? Hey, we're in Cyberpunk 2077, 1920 by 1080, high settings with medium ray tracing. DLSS 3 is enabled and working properly. We're on the balanced mode for that, and we're getting around between 100 and 130 frames per second, depending on if we're densely in the city, going through a lot of different textures, a lot of people walking around, versus just out and about more rural areas. I would say 100 to 130 there. Temperatures are in check. We've got high 50s. We just hit 60C for the first time after 20 minutes of gameplay on the 4060 Ti. Oops, I am now killing people and I'm being attacked. The CPU is also chilling at around 55C, thereabouts. It is spiking up to the high 50s occasionally, but more or less we're in the mid to high 50s for both the CPU and GPU. Absolutely fan-friggin-tastic, and also eating up quite a bit of RAM there. Almost capped out on our 8 gigs of GDDR6 on the GPU, 7.5 gigs there. So that's probably going to be a bottleneck, I would say, is the VRAM if you were to start scaling up to higher resolutions, 1440p for example. The performance is probably not going to be nearly as good, but for 1080p gaming, this thing's absolutely crushing it. I'm pretty confident that you could stick in something like an RTX 4070 Ti or even a 4080 perhaps in this case, and it would be just fine thermal-wise, assuming of course that you've outfitted the case with a bunch of fans to aid in airflow like I have. Noise levels are actually really nice right now. We've been going for about 25 minutes straight, so the CPU and GPU are completely heat-soaked. Fans are probably ramped up as high as they're going to be, and I can barely hear the system running over the central AC here in the studio, so that's really nice. Also, shout out to Cooler Master for hooking me up with a sweet keyboard and chair to make my gaming experience on this Cube 500 system a bit more enjoyable. This is the CK720. It's Cooler Master's first enthusiast-grade keyboard, at least that's what they're calling it. It's using Kalebox V2 switches, which some people swear by. I'm not a huge fan, but that's actually okay in this case because the keyboard is fully hot swappable. You can just swap it out for whichever keys or switches rather that you prefer. PBT double shot keycaps, always great. Pre-loop stabilizers, and I can tell from the enter, shift, and space bar that, that it is very sleek and it goes down easy. Three-way customizable dial. I think it's defaulted to volume. Yes, it is. But it also pushes inward, so you can macro that with the Master Plus software. Also per key lighting that's configurable in that same app. Also the chair, the Caliber X1C. It's got some cool-in fabric technology. I don't know, some mumbo-jumbo marketing spiel, but it is supposed to be a cooler chair overall. It's supposed to feel cooler and give you some heat dissipation from the chair to the player by keeping the chair presumably a couple degrees cooler than your average gaming chair, which I have no way to test that and I'm not going to, but it does feel relatively cool. The material is also scratch resistant, it's easy to clean, and very comfortable chair, I will say. I'm generally not a fan of gaming chairs, and I probably will still prefer to use my actual office chair that's mesh and it's really nice office chair. But if you are looking for a gaming chair, this is pretty comfortable by gaming chair standards, I will say. It's got the 4D armrests as well for better ergonomics, depending on your shape and size. Reclines, it's got adjustable height with the gas lift and all that. So not too shabby overall, but back to the main star of the show here. I'm very surprised and very impressed with how this build turned out. I wasn't expecting to like it so much. I really do think the Cube 500 flat pack is a great option if you're new to PC building because it actually makes the whole experience easier, in my opinion, than starting just from a pre-built case. But also if you're an experienced builder like myself, I do think you'll find a lot of enjoyment out of using this case because again, it does make the whole building experience so much different than what we're used to in a very fun and enjoyable way. The materials are all super high quality. The paint job on these macaron pastel panels is top notch. Like I said, the machining is very precise. Everything fits together like a glove, and strong I/O as well. USB 3.2 Gen 2, Type-C, hell yeah, I'll take that. I do think the price is right at around 89 bucks is the cheapest I was able to find it online at the time of filming. But you guys let me know what you think of this case, what you think of this build, and also if you're entering to win, make sure you enter to win this PC. I'm a little sad to see it go, but this is for you guys. So follow that link in the description below. Best of luck to all of you, and thanks for watching this episode, guys. Toss a like on it before you go, get subscribed for more tech content coming at you really soon, and I will see y'all in the next video.